few people coming in. We do have a quorum already. It's 11 people for a quorum. If your name isn't up on your video, if you could please change your name to your actual name, that would be great to help everybody when it comes time for voting.
So after
I have a couple of notes. Skip Hoagland is going to has actually resigned from the committee and won't be here anymore. Sophie Romano is going to be a little bit late tonight, and Andy Scrivenich is also going to be a little bit late tonight. So those two will be joining us later. Do you want to get started, Audra, so we can get going? We have a quorum. I have some of you I've gotten as we go through here. I've got Shelley Butler, Lorna Cummings, Jill Delano, Beth Doan, Lisa Dresser, John French. Is he here yet? I don't see him, John, yet. Nancy Harmon Jenkins, not here yet. Jim Hurd is here. Richard Householder, Peter Lindquist, Drew Lyman. No. I'm here. I forgot to check me off. Lisa Price is here. Wendy Rich. Where's Wendy Rich here? Wendy, oh, there you are. Sophie is going to be a little bit late. Andy Scrivenich is going to be a little bit late. Sarah Scrivenich, are you here? She's not here yet. Tyler Smith, not here yet. Courtney Sukforth is here. Mary Winchell is here. And Pamela Gleason is here. I have you on my list this time, Pamela. Good. Okay, good. I just wanted to start and remind everybody we have 3 minutes, We have 3 meetings left to go, tonight included, ending on April 1st. And we have moved these to 6. We've asked that the presentations from the department stay under 10 minutes to help us keep us on track. But I also just want to make sure, sometimes these meetings do go late. There's a whole bunch of information that we need to get, and people need to understand the departments and understand what we're doing as we move forward. The department heads and staff have put a lot of time into this, and we need to honor that as well. This is a pretty light duty committee as they go, really, for five meetings, and then we're over. But anyway, we will try and keep them moving as much as we can. We have a lot to cover, and we have a lot to cover this evening. Audra, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the future, that we have some guests that will be coming in as well beyond that are part of our meeting. If you want to mention that, just kind of talk about what we're going to do for the rest of it and give everybody a quick lowdown before we get started, that would be great. And I have Sophie who just came in. Sophie, I've got you down now.
Thank you, Robin. So for the April 1st meeting, the superintendent of MSAD and the 5-town CSD will be joining us to talk about their budgets. I believe that we did the same thing last year, and that was something that from all the feedback we received was appreciated, because it just provided extra context for the budget committee, and it was a good opportunity to involve you all in that side of the process, as well as the select board. So instead of having her come and present at a select board meeting, we've asked that she comes and presents at a budget committee meeting, since the select board will be watching as well. So that'll happen on April 1st. And during that meeting, we'll also be talking about revenues. So that'll be sort of the final night where we kind of wrap up some of the items in the budget that kind of come up continuously throughout the process, including revenues. And I've asked our assessor to come that night and talk about, what he does and how that plays into this, because I think that's a really important piece of it. And having him speak and explain his role in it all, I think will be better if it's in that context, as opposed to, the department budget side of it. So those will be 2 people who are also going to come in and talk during the course of the budget presentations.
And we'll also have time on that last evening to kind of review the budget as a whole, as we said at the beginning. We'll make sure that we have time to go back and take a look at anything that we need to take a look at. So,
Oh, and so Carrie will be there. That's when I'll also talk about TIF stuff, but I promise to keep it brief.
But I don't remember last year having the school budget presented.
I'm sorry, I might be mixing it up with 2019.
Yeah, I think it was 2018 because we had it scheduled and then the play happened and we reshuffled everything. So, all right, I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss something. Wow, school budget.
No,
last year was kind of a blur.
It's the stuff the people on the budget committee live for.
Okay, you want to get started, Audra? We're going to be on tab 4 to start tonight.
Yes, tab 4. And so tonight will be all of the public safety areas of the budget as well as public works. So our first department head to present their budget will be Chief Gagney.
Good evening. I do have a PowerPoint. I won't bore you with reading every one of them verbatim. I think Jody's going to share them for me because I'm new to Zoom and PowerPoint, but I did do the PowerPoint myself. So there's some.
I'm going to try. This is my first time. So can everybody see that?
Yep. Okay, and I'll just go through them pretty quickly. There's about 18 slides. Some of them, this is our uniform patch that we wear. Slide 2. Jody.
Trying.
Get this work.
There we go.
And this is what we're here for tonight is the 21-22 budget. So I'll start off with staffing. The department is staffed with 1 police chief. I'm shared resource with the town of Rockport as well. I have a lieutenant who is under me, 2 patrol sergeants, 1 detective sergeant, 6 patrol officers, a parking enforcement officer, and an administrative assistant. Currently, we have 1 vacancy in the patrol division, and we also have a vacancy in parking enforcement. We have held off filling the parking enforcement due to COVID. We didn't really know what last summer was going to bring, so we gave people a little extra parking in the downtown area. We figured if they were coming in and wanted to spend a little extra time, the merchants would probably appreciate not having to worry about parking. We are going to have to fill that patrol position fairly soon. I have 2 officers from Camden going to the police academy in August and 1 officer from Rockport. So that'll give a shortage in manpower. I always look for the right person to come in and fill our ranks. We don't just hire anybody. So, and policing, fire, and everything in this country, those people lining up to take those jobs is just not there. So we'll take our time and get the right person. Okay. Our hours of operation, we're open 24/7, 365 days a year. There's always an officer on duty here in the police department whenever somebody calls for police assistance. Our administrative office is staffed from 7:30 to 4 Monday through Friday. When closed, there is a call down phone in the lobby that you can make contact with our communications center, our telephone number, and the communications numbers, as you can see, for non-emergency and emergency. Our officers work 4-day on, 4-day off schedule. That's officers in patrol and the patrol sergeants. Each April, the patrol officers bid for shifts by seniority. Our detective sergeant works a 4-day on, 3-day off schedule, 10-hour shifts. The lieutenant and I both work 4 on, 3 off shifts opposite. So one of us is here during the weekday. We're also on call 24/7. One of us is always available to take those calls if needed. That's call out middle of the night, or if there's extra coverage that's needed. The administrative and parking enforcement officers work 5-day on, 2-day off schedules. Okay, since overtime is up near the top of the budget, I figured I would hit that. Our overtime is appropriated to cover vacations, trainings, vacancies, court appearances, investigations, etc. We are currently at $55,000 a year is what we are requesting. We have many factors that go into how we fill our shifts. We base some of that on experience, call logs, things like that to see if there's a special event going on, and also the population that changes there between summer and winter. It should be noted that the 55,000 covers what we use in a typical year, but that doesn't cover the 200 hours or the 200 shifts that we don't fill. If I take a vacation, we don't fill the days that I'm off. Same thing with the lieutenant, detective sergeant. If, like this time of year, if it's slow, especially with COVID, if we think we can go safely with reduced staffing, we do. We fill another approximately 75 shifts with 4-hour blocks, like from 4 to 8 in the afternoon, the busiest part of that. We have to be creative in how we do it, but if we didn't, we'd be well up over $100,000 a year for overtime. And you can see our budget breakdown is 94% is a lot of a personnel cost, which leaves 6% for operating expenditures. And I used my 2021 numbers. I transposed them across the board, except for the personnel cost. We still don't know what next year is going to bring as far as COVID. We're in good shape right now, budget-wise, and those numbers are sufficient. I think for next year as well. You'll see that the town manager and I were exactly the same on my recommendation and hers. The only place that we differed was I put in for a cruiser for this year. Audra has not put that into the capital. I have no issue with that. I support that decision by the town manager. I'll speak about the vehicles in one of the next slides down, but that was the only place that we had any difference. Our patrol division and sergeants are represented by the Maine Association of Police Bargaining Unit, and our current contract expires June 30th, 2022. I've been here for a long time. I've been a police officer with the town of Camden for 32.5 years. We've always had very good support. We've always been adequately funded and staffed so we can provide 3-tier service to the citizens of Camden. So tiers of service. Tier 1 is emergency type responses. These calls involve crimes in progress, active domestic violence, things of that nature, where an officer response is needed to either quell the disturbance, take appropriate action, or even render medical aid if needed. Tier 2 would be your non-emergency responses, late report accidents. An item has been stolen already and you're just getting the report now. They are not time critical, time sensitive type reports. And Tier 3 services deals with the quality of life issues, crime prevention, traffic management, community policing, foot patrols, drug takebacks. I put COVID-19 issues in there because we did a lot of community outreach and assistance with COVID-19 related issues this past year. And our calls for service last year were 5,875. So on the COVID front, we did a lot of education. Our goal was to do education instead of enforcement. And we wanted voluntary compliance on COVID-19 related issues. Our officers spent 130 foot shifts downtown. Those shifts could have been anywhere from all day to a few hours, depending on the amount of people that were in the downtown area. Some were in the day, some were in the night, some were both. If we encountered violations, we wanted to show understanding, compassion. It was something everybody was dealing with. And like I said, we were looking for voluntary compliance. I got to say, the issues that we had with people, they might not have agreed with what we were doing, but everybody was very good with our officers, and we greatly appreciate that. Our department has remained healthy through the pandemic. Knock on wood, we haven't had any officers who have contracted COVID-19. We've had some close calls, and we've taken appropriate measures to make sure that those officers got tested before they came back to work. And I have all of my staff is vaccinated except for 2. Some of the community programs we do a good morning call program every morning. Those who don't have regular contact with anybody can sign up. Jeff Supforth manages that for me. And he has a list of, I think we've just had 2 go into residential facilities. So I think we're between 10 and 12. And I've got to say that they love the call that they get every morning from somebody just checking on them. And twice we have had situations where somebody didn't answer their phone. We send an officer immediately if they don't answer their phone. And in both of those cases, it most likely saved the participant's life because they had they needed medical attention. We also do a Sand for Seniors program. If a senior needs some sand on their walkway or need a pail of sand, we'll take a bucket of sand out to them. And sometimes the officers even go ahead and spread it for them. We do unwanted unwanted medication collections. We have a collection box here in the office. People can drop them off. We also do the drug take back programs twice a year. And if somebody can't get out and they have medicine that they'd like to have disposed of, we will send an officer out to do that. We also do resident fingerprinting if somebody wants to get their fingerprints done for licensing, travel, employment, etc. All right, and as I said, Audra decided this year that we should wait on a cruiser. I totally understand that, and I think this is a very good year to do that. The mileage on our 2 primary vehicles is fairly low, and we can get through. I'd rather do it this year than next. We are trying to put all hybrid vehicles into our fleet. We currently have, I'm assigned a Ford Fusion police responder, and I will go on record to say I was very reluctant about hybrid vehicles when it first was brought to my attention to look at them. And one member of the select board who stayed on me pretty well won me over with them. I got to say, I like the Ford Fusion responder that I'm driving. I get anywhere from 35 to 40 miles a gallon. That's up from 20 from the Impala that I used to drive. I have not found anything I don't like about the vehicle. Maybe the trunk space could be a little better. It handles well for what I do. No issues at all with it. Unfortunately, Ford has decided to go away from making that in a police responder vehicle. So that's not an option anymore. We do have a Ford SUV hybrid that we've just put online. It's got about 2,000 miles on it. I'm hoping the gas mileage gets better in it. It's in the 17 to 20 right now. It calls for combined 24 miles per gallon. And hopefully we see that as the weather warms up, we get a little better gas mileage out of that. Skipping a year also gives me the opportunity to, let me just throw in there that, when I took over as chief, we were getting about 2 years on a vehicle. And I've upped that to about 4 because of the expense of new vehicles. But the quality of the vehicles we use now is much better than it was in years past. I've got a couple vehicles that are going on to their 5th year, and we can get another year out of those older vehicles as well. I'm looking at things like the Tesla Model 3 long range all-wheel drive. They are much more expensive, but 350 miles on a full charge. I would try one of those out if we were to purchase one or a similar vehicle to that with my supervisors and detective sergeant. It wouldn't need to be set up with a partition inside, and it would need less equipment. And I'd like to see how those test out. We would have to, if we went with a full electric option, we'd probably want to put a charging station here. But I would be looking to probably operate that vehicle in the 4 to 6 year range. So working with Rockport, as I said earlier, I'm a shared resource with Rockport, but what we have now in place is we have 2 departments who are still separate departments, separate towns, but we work together in harmony. It has made a much better situation for our officers. We don't have officers going to calls by themselves anymore, basically like domestic violence calls, issues at the hospital. If we have an issue here, our officers are allowed to go across the town line. They are sworn in both agencies. Our supervisors have the ability to make calls in either town. So for instance would be if a Camden supervisor is on and there's nobody on in Rockport and he hears that his chase has started, that supervisor can make the call to terminate that pursuit in the other jurisdiction. Same thing with Rockport. That Rockport supervisor has the same authority. Our officers in both agencies have dual matching policy and procedure. So there's no question when they go into the other jurisdiction what the policy would be. It has made a much better situation, like I said, safety-wise for our officers. They work together on many cases because being neighboring towns, a lot of cases run over into the other town. You know, we have historically worked together very close. This new phase is just making that better. Are we at a point where someday we might decide that we need to merge the departments? I think that's a question the towns have to ask themselves. It comes down to identity. Some towns like to keep their personal identities and keep those things separate. But what we have going and what we have had going for the last 4 years is working great. It doesn't. I'd be asking for the same amount of money in this budget and in the Rockport budget if we weren't working together. So we're not putting more people on. The other thing it allows me to do is tap resources. If Rockport is an open overtime shift, they don't have anybody that's interested in the shift, we'll offer it to a Camden officer and vice versa. So it gives me more people to pull from to cover those shifts when we need to. Our communications is through the Knox County Regional Communications Center in Rockland. They take all of our emergency calls and most business calls, and they radio dispatch our officers. There'll be a line in there for the amount that we need to pay for that service. And I'm sure Jody or Audra can tell you, I think it's based on population, and we really don't have much to say about how much they charge us for that. And if you're bored with my presentation, that's about over. But I really would like to thank the Budget Committee members, the town managers and select boards, both past and present, for continued support of the police department. Camden does enjoy a very low crime rate, and that in part is to proper staffing, training, and funding of our department. Without those factors, I don't believe Camden would be the place that it has always been and continues to be today. I do thank you all for taking your time. We appreciate the support that we've always had from our committees and managers and boards, etc. And I think I'd take any questions.
Good. Thank you, Randy. Sophie has a couple of questions to start, and if we can take us off share for that slideshow so that we can see everybody, that would be great. Sophie, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, thanks, Randy, and thanks, Chief Gagné, for this really cool presentation. I've learned a lot, so I'm happy you gave it to us today. A couple of questions for you. The first one is 5,875 calls this year. Is it up, down, the same compared to
it's
previous year?
Obviously it's down because of COVID. I did put our offices on reactive status only for calls this year. Those numbers will fluctuate too. Some years it's just busier than other years.
But it's not super. Didn't go down from 8,000 to 5,800. It's like it's a little bit on par with your. Okay.
I can pull the year before.
No. It's just to get an idea. The second question is, and maybe you cannot answer that one. The $55,000 to cover overtime also includes vacation and sick days. And I'm curious about this. Aren't sick days and vacation accrued on the salary and coming out from another line?
That covers if an officer calls out sick, we have to have an officer come in and work that shift.
I see what you mean. So it's not the time off for vacation or sick days, it's the shift. Thank you so much for this clarification.
That 200 figure that I gave you, sometimes we don't need to if we've got adequate staff.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else from the Budget Committee have some questions for Chief Gagné? Nancy Jenkins? Nancy, you're on mute.
Okay,
Yeah.
can you hear me now? No.
We can
Yeah.
hear you.
Okay, all right. I had spoken with Chief Randy, months and months, almost a year ago, when all of this controversy came up about the treatment of populations by police departments in very, very different situations from what we have here in Camden. And I have no reason to question the attitude of the police in Camden, but he assured me that his officers and staff and so forth get training in handling very provocative situations like that, situations that have political implications. And I wondered if that's an ongoing program with them, if that's something you renew every year, or is it a once in a lifetime, once in a career kind of thing? It's just curious what's happening.
Nancy, we do refresher type training every year. It might not be on the same topics, but we have core things that we do train on. I will say that we far exceed what we have by law to have for those officers who are crisis intervention team trained. We were at like 90% for the department, but I've had some officers leave and I've got new officers who will get that as part of their academy training. But we also do bias-based policing, refresher type trainings, things like that. Anytime I see current trends around the country, and we have online training services where those are available, I will have the officers do refresher type. We review our policies and procedure manuals annually with all officers. They sign off on those, and they are given an opportunity to make recommendations or ask any questions they have. So the training aspect of our department, I always say, hours spent in training are much better than hours spent in litigation.
Thanks, Chief. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Courtney, did I see you with your hand raised?
Yes, I might have missed this, but I was just wondering if you might be able to clarify. There just seemed to be a big discrepancy in the full-time wages for the fiscal year 21, and then just going forward with the 22, a big difference in actual and then budgeted. And then this year it's going up again. So I just wasn't sure if that was just because of COVID stuff.
Well, we have contractual obligations for payment. The officers are getting a raise this year. No other employees in the town are. So that would be one. Some of it might be because we have lost an employee. So we may have more money in there than was budgeted. So it's all fluctuation of staff and contractual obligations.
Okay, budget committee, Shelley, did I see you with a hand up or no? No, okay. Anybody else? Chief Gagné, there's a quick question in the chat. What does reactive status only mean?
What that means is we were going to calls when we had to go, say a domestic or things like that. What I was doing was having the officers kind of step back from self-initiated patrol stops unless it was a major violation. We were trying to reduce the amount of contact during the critical times with the COVID. So we went to every emergency call, we went to everything, and if an officer saw a violation that needed to be addressed, they would address it. If it was a simple traffic infraction that they might stop and give somebody a warning for, we kind of asked them not to do that at this time. But any safety related things, they would take action.
Great, thank you. Sarah, you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick one. Thanks for that presentation. It was really helpful. I just wanted to see if I understood. Did you say there aren't cost efficiencies you talked about the two departments between Rockport and Camden combining. Are there ultimately cost efficiencies gained if there was a combination of those two? And maybe it's a not for now discussion, but I just was curious.
Well, I can say we did a study on this many years ago, and in that study, it didn't show that there would be great cost savings. You're still going to need the same amount of people to cover 24-hour shifts and whatnot.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure if we were to go back and look at this again, and if we inch closer to doing that, if the towns decide they want to do that, I'm sure that there may be some cost savings there when it comes to vehicles, things like that. I'm sure we could find some savings there. But for right now, the way we're operating, I guess what I was trying to say is my budget for Camden is the same as it would be if we were standalone. Ed Rockport's would be the same. But we have that flexibility that we can tap resources to help each other out, and it's not costing us anymore.
Okay. And just one promise, quick follow-up. And just from a historical perspective, the number of officers that, and I am thinking more post-COVID, an influx of folks that may be living here more full-time, versus the ebbs and flows of the seasonal folks. Is it based on just calls and volume or population? I didn't know if there's how that trend or that.
Our full-time staff has been at the same staffing levels for 2 decades.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
And I believe we're adequately staffed for
Okay, thanks.
you.
Any questions about the budget or any of the numbers that anybody has for the police department? And if not, is there a motion to be made?
I'm happy to make a motion to accept, was it a motion to accept the budget from the town manager of $1,334,500 for the police department of Camden?
A
I'll
second?
second that.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll
thank you.
second that.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, and roll call vote, please. Is Shelley Butler,
Yes.
Lorna Cummings,
Yes.
Jill Delano,
Yes.
Beth Doan,
Yes.
Lisa Dresser,
Yes.
and John French is not here yet, I believe. Nancy Harmon Jenkins,
Yes.
Nancy, okay. Jim Hurd.
Yes.
Yes.
Richard Householder,
Yes.
Peter Lindquist.
Yes.
I believe Drew Lyman is not here. I am a yes. Robin McIntosh, Lisa Price,
Yes.
Wendy Rich,
Yes.
Sophie Romana,
Yes.
Andy Scrivenich,
Yes.
Sarah Scrivenich.
Yes,
I've been practicing your name.
I am impressed. That's from the
All
first
week.
roll call. It's pretty good.
If you just read the consonants, you'll never get it wrong.
Tyler Smith? Tyler? You're there? I see you on the screen.
He's muted.
He's unmuted.
Tyler just stepped away for a second.
Okay, great. Thank you. Courtney Sukforth.
Yes.
Courtney, yes. Mary Winchell?
Yes.
Yes. And Pamela Gleason?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes with all in favor. And I guess that's it for that section. Audra, where do we go from here?
So the next one is county dispatch, and Randy talked about it a little bit. So this is the Knox County Regional Communication Center, and it provides the communication support for all of the emergency services agencies within Knox County, including our police department, fire department, and they also dispatch our EMS contractor. And that is calculated based on population, which is a little different than how the county assesses our taxes to the county. So that is $158,927 for this year. So down a little bit from FY21.
And this is just a bill, correct? It's nothing we have any control over.
Unfortunately, yes. Well, we have a little control over it. Chief Farley is the director of the board there. So, or sorry, is it a board or a advisory committee? Yeah. So he can.
Is
Do you need a vote on that, Audra?
What's that?
Do we need a vote on this?
Yes, please.
Is it
So
on page
it's-
13?
Yeah, I would move that we accept the 158,927 as recommended by the town manager.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second, any discussion or questions? Okay, we will go through for a vote again. Shelley Butler,
Yes.
Lorna Cummings,
Yes.
Jill Delano,
Yes.
Beth Doan,
Yes.
Lisa Dresser,
Yes.
No John French. Nancy Harmon Jenkins.
Yes.
Jim Hurd.
Yes.
Richard Householder.
Yes.
Peter Lindquist.
Yes.
And no Drew Lyman still, I assume. I am a yes. Licia Price.
Yes.
Wendy Rich.
Yes.
Sophie Romana.
Yes.
Sophie. Andy Scrivenich.
Yes.
Yes. Sarah Scrivenich.
Yes.
Yes. Tyler Smith, looks like he is not here. Courtney Sukeforth.
Yes.
Mary Winchell.
Yes.
And Pamela Gleason.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Next up, fire and rescue. Page 14.
Hi, Robin.
Hey, Chris, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Good evening, everybody. Jody again is has my PowerPoint and has it shared up there. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of what we did. The first thing I have up actually is some numbers from the last calendar year. And if Jody can go to the next slide. Kind of gives a breakdown of our incidents for the year.
If you enable editing, it'll allow you to advance.
And I can tell you that while Jody's doing that, is our typical call volume in years past has been in the 400 to 500 range. You can see there at the bottom that last year we were at an even 300. So our incident volume was down about 25%. We weren't really sure how COVID was going to affect that with people being home, how that might affect our incidents in residential areas. But as you can see, that dropped quite a bit. One of the things that usually catches people's eye on there is the category that says false alarm and false calls. I don't like that category. I think it should be labeled something like unintentional alarms, because there's always something that causes a fire alarm to go off. And we have found a number of things over the years. So sometimes it's a simple thing as contractors not covering smoke detectors when they're doing work, or sometimes it's dirty detectors, but so there's always a reason that those alarms go off. And you'll see in a couple slides that was pretty significant for us this year. The next slide just kind of shows the spread across the days of the week. You'll see there's not necessarily any Fridays are a little busier than the rest, but it's pretty even across the week. And then the next slide shows incidents as they occur throughout the day. And you do see on there that we have, there's myself and 3 other career personnel here. The shifts are from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And you do see that is when our largest call volume is. And so that's one of the reasons why we have folks here during the day. And we have changed up because of COVID, the way we've changed up our shifts. I'm actually now I work one of the shifts, so that there's always 2 of us on staff here. A lot of that is because we are very heavily dependent on our part-time on-call firefighters, and we are just in that nationwide trend that there are fewer and fewer folks serving as firefighters in our communities, and we certainly feel that on a regular basis. Our most significant event of the last calendar year was the fire that happened at Lyman Morse, which is on Saturday, June 13th. That was at 11:45 p.m. And we were dispatched by Knox Regional Communication Center to a fire alarm activation. We always respond to those fire alarm activations like it's going to be the real thing. But we only respond to those within our own department. Typically what happens if the Knox RCC gets a report of a building fire, there's an automatic mutual aid which goes out, which involves Camden, Rockport, Lincolnville, and Hope. In this situation, We handled this one initially by ourselves because it was dispatched as a fire alarm activation. As the crew, which was a 5-person crew, which was totally our part-time on-call firefighters who were on the truck as they came down C Street. As they were looking down C Street, saw what they thought was fog in the area, and as they drove through it, they realized that that was smoke and not fog, and that there was a situation that was more significant than they thought they were going into. So they immediately called for that automatic mutual aid assistance, and we were assisted on this incident by our mutual aid partners in Rockport, Lincolnville, and Hope. And we all know the result of that. There was a significant damage. The building's certificate of occupancy was revoked by the code enforcement officer, and those buildings are all gone now. And we all know that Lyman Morris has a plan to rebuild them. So that was our big event for last year. So what we've done, what we've been doing over the last many months is kind of planning for the future and how we move forward. We obviously need to address our staffing situation, and just take, I looked at this picture and I saw the many changes. This picture was taken in June of 2013. And then just looking real quickly there, you still had Atlantica Restaurant on the waterfront. What is now 16 Bayview is still the movie theater. Peter Roth's is now in underneath 16 Bayview. Cappy's is still in that picture, the Village Restaurant. And at the time this picture was taken, there was still Wayfarer Marine, not Lyman Morse. So just the many changes that have happened in the community, and we need to look at ourselves as an organization and department and how we're adapting to those changes. Also, 2013 was the last year that Camden First Aid was providing service. So we have been looking at how we adapt and how we change, we make some changes here so we continue to provide a quality service to the town. And part of what we did with that is we realized that we have fewer personnel and more apparatus. This the truck in this picture, engine 2, over a number of years we had been talking with the town of Hope about selling that truck to them, and we sold that truck to Hope last year. It's actually up in the Hope Corner Station, and it actually still responds to Camden for any mutual aid fire call, and we have the value, the monetary value that we got out of it, and still have the use of the truck. So one of the things that we need to do is we look at the future is what else do we need to have? So we're recommending the purchase of a mini pumper, which would in a sense take the place of engine 2, engine 6. Engine 6 is a 1980 truck that we still have in service. It's primarily used for grass fires and woods fires. And a smaller truck like this would be more useful in the remote areas, the state park, the recreation areas, the snow bowl, on narrow camp roads. And it would be a daily use vehicle for our full-time folks. And it would also help us in EMS first response capabilities. So just some key items in the fire department budget. I mentioned our career personnel, and we're also certified code enforcement officers. And since October 2020 and still to today, we are still doing the primary responsibility for code enforcement. Rosie Curtis is in the job. She started a couple months ago and working under certifications, and we work with her on a daily basis to make sure that the things in the code office are moving. We have, I said 16 part-time on-call firefighters, but we just lost one who this week she bought a house in Rockland and has moved to Rockland. So we're down to 15. And that is significant because how significant that is, on Tuesday at about 10 o'clock this week, we had a fire alarm activation at 51 Mechanic Street. And we had 4 firefighters respond to that call. There was myself, Matt Heath, the firefighter who was on duty, Jack Orestes, who was a public works employee who was on his day off, and Alex Davis, who just recently started a maintenance job at the Opera House. So although they weren't all full-time employees of the fire department, the only folks who responded to that incident were employees of the town. So it's important that we start to address the staffing issue here. So what we've done, as we've shifted some funds from the part-time on-call lines to a part-time line that we use primarily to cover shifts for the full-time firefighters. What I'd like to be able to do is always have 2 firefighters on staff here. And what we learned through COVID is that's pretty important. Through the course of COVID, we did have a number of our part-time folks who didn't want to respond to calls. Now they're starting to come back now that incidents of COVID are going down and they've all been vaccinated. So we also, as I said, there's been the ongoing review. We had an EMS review group that worked with the 4 towns. They are suggesting that we implement an emergency first responder program. And so as part of that review process, we put together a couple of different options for those folks to look at. We put together an option of including funding in our budget for tuition to have one of our firefighters attend a paramedic program. We included some options to add another full-time firefighter, and then another option to add 2 full-time firefighters. And those are just some things for consideration. And like I said, the review committee suggested that we start to look at providing emergency medical services, and that's a way for us to add some more staff here, some firefighters who can provide emergency medical services, such as they do in Rockland. That's the model that's used in many fire departments around the state. And so Camden, actually, the upper picture, the older picture, that's from 1935 when a new vehicle was delivered to Camden. And so the Camden Fire Department used to do emergency medical services, and somehow over the years transitioned out of doing that. And what our thought is that we would be doing a regional service with some of our mutual aid partners. And so some of the recommendations that have come out of that is to establish a regional municipally run ambulance service. And we did that with the 4 towns. We sat down with Rockland as well and the folks at Penn Bay Medical Center about how we can address some of those issues. And then I think the next slide shows, well, how do we move forward? There were some of the suggestions about a hybrid system using a mixed fire and private ambulance service for us to develop a core of EMT trained first responders. And that's, our goal is to start to do that in January of 2022. And it's something that all the 4 fire chiefs in Camden, Rockport, Lincoln, Glen Hope want to work towards doing. And that's about it for the fire department. I'd welcome any questions.
I have a question for you, Chris. The mini pumper truck that you referenced, which line does that come under?
I think that is in the capital line.
Yep, so that's in the capital improvement program budget. So that is tab 9.
Yes, back in the greens. Okay.
Yep.
So what does the increase in the 1008 equipment supplies line and the small department equipment increase? What's the rationale for the increases in those lines?
I heard the small department equipment line, Lisa. I didn't hear the other one.
The equipment supplies, that last year you were budgeted at 10,000. We spent 2,000 so far, but you're asking for 12,000 this year. And then the small equipment, you were budgeted 7,000, haven't used any of it, and now you're asking for 11,000. I'm just wondering what comes in those lines.
Okay, the equipment line is the protective equipment for the firefighters.
Okay.
And we typically place an order for that in the spring. So that's why you don't see that there's still a balance in that line there.
Okay.
And then small department equipment, 3525 is.
Yes.
That's a similar thing. We usually wait until the spring and buy new equipment in the spring. That's radios, pagers, and things like that.
So those are lines that are going to be utilized this year. It's not that the case they're just weren't needed.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the committee?
Um,
Sophie?
Yes. Is the EMS service a potentially revenue generating activity for the department? I mean, do you get like billings from insurance companies, or is it just an additional service?
Good question. And the answer to that is yes. Typically, EMS is a revenue generator. It doesn't necessarily pay for itself. I think in Rockland, in rough numbers, their budget is $2 million, and I think they have revenue of about $1 million. Audra might know that better, but that's rough numbers.
Thank you.
Lorna?
Hi, thanks. So your long range plan is maybe to have like 4 towns do a combined like fire and EMS and not use a separate EMS provider for the towns? Can you hear me?
The short answer to that, is yes. I think my long range plan, it would include more than 4 towns.
So just to give you a little idea, Chief Farley cited the city of Rockland, so about a $2 million fire-based EMS service budget with about $1 million of revenue. And if you look at, combined fire EMS for both the towns of Camden and Rockport, we're looking at, we're pretty much this, we're about like 1.2 million in cost with no revenue at all currently. So it cost us about as much to provide fire protection and emergency medical services across those 2 towns as it does the city of Rockland. So that's just to give a little bit of context as to why we're kind of looking at this and where we might be going.
And so would you be thinking like you wouldn't really have or rely on volunteer firefighters so much and just have all paid down the road?
Ideally, I think we would still have a combination. We would still encourage part-time on-call firefighters, absolutely. And the folks that we have are awesome. So, I mean, they're great folks. They turn out at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and they come during the day when they can, but they all have other jobs and they all have family responsibilities. And I fully appreciate that. And like I said, they're awesome. I would encourage that we do that as much as we can, but we just, daytime is really tough. And we certainly need to supplement our staffing situation daytime in particular.
But you're okay this year? Sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Lorna.
I was wondering, so you're okay though for this year, like as far as it's not a dangerous situation you don't think this year for your staffing?
We are, because we rely heavily on the mutual aid situation.
Okay, any other questions on the budget?
And that's not just us. Anytime there's a fire in Rockland, we're going to Rockland. We are all working together. We were at a fire on Main Street in Rockland last month, and we had fire departments from St. George and Waldoboro. That's an uncommon incident because of pulling from such geographic locations, but it's becoming more and more common. And it's not that we need more trucks. We need the people that come from those communities.
Sarah, you have a question?
Yeah, so it sounds like for the volunteer, or that falls under the part-time, if there's like a stipend or per call rate. So I guess the 2 questions I have are, is there like a recruitment effort or outgoing word to try to fill and bring people into that? And if that was the case, or even by word of mouth, is it built in to increase it back to where you're hoping it would be? If it's kind of anemic right now, or?
No, it's just, we have an ongoing recruitment process. I mean, we're always beating the streets. I sometimes feel a little bit like a stalker because I walk around thinking, is that person going to make a good firefighter? And I go up and chat with people. We all do. We have some folks in the community. If somebody moves in who are realtors and they say, hey, have you considered joining the fire department? We go over to the schools when we can. Obviously, we haven't been able to do that recently, but it's a constant thing.
But from a budget perspective, planning for increasing those numbers is already baked into that. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions on this budget for this year? And Audra, are you going to go to the reserve as or capital on this as well? For
Yep.
that one line item or?
So if everybody would flip to tab 9, page 37, you'll see that the fire truck expense is down at the bottom of that column. It's, I believe, the third item from the bottom, and it's a $350,000 expense. And apologies for asking you to do this, but if you flip to the revenue page, the green page, you'll see that I'm proposing to fund it through a combination of the proceeds that we received from the sale of the fire truck to the town of Hope that Chief Farley was referring to. So we put that in a fire truck reserve account. That was $120,000. So we're proposing to use that for a down payment, and then the balance of the cost of that truck, that $230,000, will be paid with a loan. Or sorry, it'll probably be a lease purchase agreement, to be more accurate.
So what you need a motion on the budget itself, which Chief Farley has recommended $599,600, and it looks like you concur with that. That's a 7.7% increase, and we need a motion on that.
Well, I make a motion. I can make a motion to accept the preferred amount of $599,600.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second, Jill. Thank you. Okay, we will have a roll call vote. Shelley Butler,
Yes.
Lorna Cummings,
Yes.
Jill Delano,
Yes.
Beth Doan,
Yes.
Lisa Dresser.
Yes.
Yes. Still no John French, Nancy Harmon Jenkins,
Yes.
Jim Hurd,
Yes.
Richard Householder,
Yes.
Peter Lindquist.
Yes.
Still no Drew Lyman, I believe. I am a yes. Lisa Price,
Yes.
Wendy Rich,
Yes.
Sophie Romano,
Yes.
Andy Scrivenich,
Yes.
Sarah Scrivenich,
Yes.
and Tyler Smith. I think I saw you back.
Yes.
Yes. Courtney Sukforth,
Yes.
Mary Winchell,
Yes.
and Pamela Gleason.
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. And you don't need a motion yet on the fire truck. That comes later when we look at the full shooting match there. So thank you, Chief Farley. And on to public safety building.
All right, so these are all the expenses associated with the public safety building, which houses both the fire department as well as the police department. And it entails, custodial services as well as all the normal expenses that go along with maintaining a building, electricity, heat, water, sewer, also the HVAC contract. And there's some small amounts budgeted for things like maintenance and purchasing equipment that's shared between both departments in that building. The budget, I've proposed a decrease from FY21. A lot of that just comes down to sort of looking at actuals over the last few years and decreasing the heating costs, which we hope will result anyway as a result of the installation of the heat pumps in that building, and just sort of looking at actuals for things like equipment purchases and proposing a little bit of a reduction in some of those areas.
Okay, any questions?
Accept the town manager's budget of 43,185 on this.
And a second?
Second.
Second. Lorna, do you have a question before we move on to a vote?
I just wanted to draw attention to Allison's note in the chat for Mr. Farley at whatever time before he leaves.
Okay, why don't we move ahead with the vote and then we can address that. I roll call vote. Shelley Butler,
Yes.
Lorna Cummings,
Yes.
Jill Delano,
Yes.
Beth Doan,
Yes.
Lisa Dresser,
Yes.
John French is not here, Nancy Harmon Jenkins,
Yes.
Jim Hurd,
Yes.
Richard Householder,
Yes.
Peter Lindquist,
Yes.
Drew Lyman is not here, Robin McIntosh, yes, Licia Price,
Yes.
Licia?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Wendy Rich,
Yes.
Sophie Romano,
Yep.
Andy Scrivenich,
Yes.
Sarah Scrivenich,
Yes.
Tyler Smith,
Yes.
Courtney Sukforth,
Yes.
Mary Winchell,
Yes.
and Pamela Gleason.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So the motion passes. Chris, there's a quick question here. If you can answer it quickly, can you explain the process for becoming a volunteer and also what they're paid? If we can
So
address.
our part-time on-call firefighters are municipal employees. So they just go through the same hiring process that all municipal employees go through. And they are paid for responding to incidents, training, and whatever other special details that we have to do during the course of the year. We host the municipal voting, so we need to have folks come in and help to do that. They get paid for all those kind of work details as well.
Great, thank you. Okay, hydrant assessment rental on page 17.
All right, so the Hydrant Network and the cost associated with that is a rate that's assessed to us by Maine Water. Their rates actually went up this year. However, when we recalculated everything, because sometimes we don't have what their rates are going to be at the time we're preparing the budget. So we, try to budget conservatively to make sure that we're covering that cost. But we were fortunate to get their, their rates ahead of time in order to be able to calculate what the actuals were going to be for this year's budget. So despite a slight increase in rates, that amount is going down because it's more accurate to reflect what they're actually going to charge us this year than it was in the past year.
Okay, any questions on that?
I would move we accept the town manager's recommendation of $258,000.
Second.
Second, good, thank you. Okay, here we go. Shelley Butler,
Yes.
Lorna Cummings,
Yes.
Jill Delano,
Yes.
Beth Doan,
Yes.
Lisa Dresser,
Yes.
no John French, Nancy Harmon Jenkins,
Yes.
Jim Hurd,
Yes.
Richard Householder,
Yes.
Peter Lindquist,
Yes.
no Drew Lyman, Robin McIntosh, yes, Licia Price,
Yes.
Wendy Rich,
Yes.
Sophie Romano,
Yep.
Andy Scrivenich,
Yes.
Sarah Scrivenich,
Yes.
Tyler Smith,
Yes.
Courtney Sukforth,
Yes.
Mary Winchell,
Yes.
and Pamela Gleason.
Yes.
Thank you.
Robin, I have a quick question on
Yeah.
this item, if I may. Why are we voting on this? Because it doesn't seem that we can't opt out. We need the hydrants, right? The rate is set by Maine Water, so we don't have any control over this. Couldn't we lump this into the fire and safety equipment budget line, or is there a specific reason why we have to have a separate vote on this for future, time-saving future budget committees?
Audra, can you answer that?
I think it's one of those historic things where, there's a desire to kind of draw a difference between the operational expenses of the department. And this is almost like an infrastructure network. So
Yeah.
I think it's kind of just trying to separate those because they are sort of separate things, even though they're related.
Yeah. Well, maybe for next year we can move it bundle it with some other lines. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, there's a few like this where we really don't have much of it, like county dispatch fees, kind of similar.
It's like we have no control over this, right? So let's.
Yeah. And maybe a suggestion, anything that's an assessment like Midco Solid Waste, the hydrant, that's all stuff that we could do. And we're more than happy to make changes that would make it more logical for all of you. So thank you for that feedback.
Thank you. Okay, emergency medical services on page 18.
So Chief Farley talked about this a little bit in his presentation, and a lot of you were involved in sort of, the first year of this last year when we talked about, this becoming sort of more of a department and starting up the beginning stages of a first responder program. We were a little bit, I'd say COVID threw a real spanner in the works with progressing a lot of this because, in the middle of a pandemic really isn't the time to start up a new service. However, we did have a lot of people on staff, community members, so some, volunteers, call division people, even our own finance director, Jody Hansen, who took EMT training, and a few who have taken the tests and have the certification now. So that was progressed, but actually setting up a program and having people out there responding is something that we're still in the middle of doing. And we've been able to kind of flesh it out a little bit more with some of our mutual aid partners, Hope, Lincolnville, Rockport, through the study that we did with Kevin McGinnis was our consultant for that. So, we are proposing to move forward with it again this year, and we have a little bit more information on how that would be structured now and some ideas on, how to take the first steps in moving that forward cooperatively with our surrounding towns. So really the big difference between what was budgeted for last year and what we would be asking for this year is that startup equipment. So that's, all of the equipment that an emergency medical technician would need in order to respond if there was an incident. So, we're trying to kind of take these incremental steps towards, what we're like a fire-based EMS system and seeing if that's, something that we could do with our surrounding towns. At this stage, we're really just kind of trying to take the first step in doing that, which is the first responder program. Does anybody have any questions? Or Jill?
Jill?
Yeah, I don't know if we're getting into the budget other than big picture, but it looks like we're, only a quarter of the way through 21 and we've used half the budget. What's that for the emergency medical services?
So really the only thing that we've used to date is the paying out the contract to Northeast Mobile Health Services, who is our current ambulance service provider. And so the other expenses, any wages for a first responder program and all the the payroll stuff associated with that, we haven't spent any money on because we haven't got that program up and running this financial year.
Thank you. I'm sitting here typing an answer, and I'll just say it. A conversation that's going on in the chat session here on Courtney suggesting that we perhaps visit some of these departments. And I just wanted to point out that the budget committee, maybe 3 years ago, was it, did visit all of the departments, or the departments tours were set up to learn about what was going on. Sadly, not that many people took advantage of it. I think there were 3 people the night I went to the sewage treatment plant, the wastewater treatment plant, and not many more than that at the library. So it's a great way to do it. And maybe that's a suggestion for next year, is to potentially set that up again, just for people who are interested. So do you need any other questions for Audra on emergency medical services in this budget, or a motion to move with it? And we have a motion for the.
Yeah, I move to accept the town manager's budget for the emergency medical services of $193,530. Can we vote on the second line as well, the 500 operations center?
That sounds fine to me. If you'd like to incorporate that into your motion.
Yes, please.
Okay, so then we'll be voting on the $193,530 and the $500 below it. Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Shelley Butler,
Yes.
Lorna Cummings,
Yes.
Jill Delano,
Yes.
Beth Doan,
Yes.
Lisa Dresser,
Yes.
John French is not here, Nancy Harmon Jenkins,
Yes.
Jim Hurd,
Yes.
Richard Householder,
Yes.
Peter Lindquist.
Yes.
Drew Lyman is not here. Robin McIntosh, yes. Licia Price,
Yes.
Wendy Rich,
Yes.
Sophie Romano,
Yes.
Andy Scrivenich,
Yes.
Sarah Scrivenich,
Yes.
Tyler Smith,
Yes.
Courtney Sukeforth,
Yes.
Mary Winchell,
Yes.
and Pamela Gleason.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And so we've gotten through both of those. So we're on to tab 5.
Oh, I think, Robin, we missed the street lights.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's
You
another
missed
page.
streetlights?
we missed the streetlights.
Page 19.
Okay, let's go. I'm just going down the agenda. Okay. Let's do streetlights then.
Streetlights. So we have finished converting all of our streetlights across the entire town over to LEDs. Thank you to Public Works Director Dave St. Laurent. He finalized that project. And as you can see, we are over budget currently, and a lot of that had to do with the timing of when the conversion happened and acquiring our streetlights from CMP. So that electricity line in the past, it included a combination of the lease fee that CMP charged us for our streetlights, as well as the demand charge for electricity. And the lease fee actually is the bulk of that number. So it breaks down to being like about $35,000 a year. And we had to pay out the utility as the initial part of that project for our streetlight network. And then that allowed us to convert all those lights over to new LED lights. So the bulk of the savings in that line will come out of not paying that lease fee to CMP anymore, but we'll also see a reduction in our electricity charges because of the conversion to LEDs, which are more energy efficient. Interestingly enough, though, the way that CMP charges for streetlights, they do an average for every single light. They don't meter all of them. And they don't have a tariff structure set up where they can charge for streetlights based on their actual usage. It's more like an average usage. So one thing that we've been working on with the Public Utilities Commission, and by we, I mean the town of Camden, as well as a lot of other municipalities across the state of Maine that have done a similar project to what we've done. All of us have smart meters on our new lights, so we're trying to get the PUC to set up a structure with the utilities where it's the actual metered usage of electricity that we're being billed for instead of an average cost. But until all of that happens, I wanted to budget conservatively. We were expecting that it would be about $4,000 a year, but until I have a year of electricity data, I wanted to budget conservatively again in hopes that by the time we're discussing the FY23 budget, we know exactly what that cost will be, and hopefully it'll be even lower due to a change in the rate structure that accounts for what we're actually using instead of just a across the board average.
Whoever thought street lighting was boring? I have just a quick question.
When you get in trouble with CMP, that it gets very, very sticky and interesting.
Oh, I mean, this was, enlightening. Pun intended. Audra, are we a dark city?
We are not officially one, but we definitely want to take on board a lot of those sort of practices and principles. And a good thing about owning our own streetlight network is that it allows us to move more towards that because we program our lights. So we get to determine, which lights go off, when they go off, and when they come back on. And I think that, just a good example, not just for energy savings and environmental purposes, but, maybe there's a neighborhood that's struggling with, like a brown tail moth infestation, and, it'd be beneficial for that particular neighborhood for us to turn the streetlights off. We now have that ability and we didn't before. So there's, I think, going to be a lot of benefits that we keep on discovering as we, get more experienced in operating our own network.
Nancy, do you have a question?
Yeah, this business of dimming the lights, I think is very interesting. And I don't know that many people in town are aware that that can happen to individual lights. And I'm wondering, what is the process? Who does a citizen go to if they want to discuss dimming the lights on a specific location?
Great question. We've been trying to get everyone to come to Janissary. So if they contact our office, we can coordinate that with Dave St. Laurent, who he is the master of the network.
And it's wonderful, I have to say. We had one outside our house that was super bright and they dimmed it, and it's just awesome to not have that bright thing shining. Courtney, you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering if there are any neighborhoods or side streets right now that don't have streetlights. Not saying that I want them in my neighborhood. I think all of us like to not have them, but if there was a neighborhood that didn't have them, that wanted to have them, what would that process be, and how is that budgeted if we ever had to add more streetlights? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so when we did the conversion, we knew that if we tried to sort of redesign everything, it would take us forever. So we thought, we'll just kind of replace what we have in kind. And then, as we go forward, if we have requests to remove lights or to add new ones, we would just sort of handle it on a case by case basis. But I think if we have like a whole neighborhood that is requesting streetlights, I think that would really get down to a decision of the select board, because that becomes more of a policy decision. There have been, some decisions over the years to get rid of lights in certain neighborhoods. So, I think when it comes to sort of any larger expansion of the network, it's really a policy decision. I think, there are some other areas where it can be more of a case by case basis. Like if it's an area that already has lights in it and it's just kind of adding another one in a logical location, like at an intersection or something like that, that's a little bit different. But I think that any big expansion, that would have to come before the select board for a decision.
Thank you.
Audra, for FY21, we're already at 23,448 for an actual. Do you think that the 23,500 is a realistic number?
I'm hoping so, because of the fact that we've already converted all of our lights over. So we're not paying no portion of FY21 will we be paying the lease fee to CMP for our lights. And also, theoretically, the electricity bill will be reduced. The actual demand charge for the lights will be reduced because now it's an all LED network. But this year, FY22 will be the first full year where we have really good data on exactly what the electricity costs are. But I'm pretty confident that that $10,000 number is a conservative number.
Thank you. Any other questions, Sarah?
It's probably for, I'm assuming, hopefully a different budget, but is there a brown tail moth Camden removal initiative or budget that's being looked at or thought about? Or I could save that. I don't know if it comes later or if it's not part of it.
I would say that when it comes to our parks and land that's owned by the town, there are remediation efforts in place. But when it comes to private property, that's a really difficult thing. It's not really something that the municipality can do. And that used to be something that on a state level, the state government had a spraying program and they stopped doing it because of, some private property owners opting out. And when you have private property owners opting out, and a lot of our infestation is actually within the shoreland area, so it can't be sprayed anyway. It just doesn't control the population, so it was never effective. And that's why the state stopped doing it. So really, it's just one of those problems that there's no good solution to it. And private property owners really sort of need to figure out, how they want to handle it on their own. And I know that that's a very frustrating answer for everyone, but I think collectively, the best thing that we can do is just support the people at places like the University of Maine are doing research into this, because until there are some better treatment options available, there's really nothing that we can do that's effective on a broad scale across a whole community.
Okay, if we can bring this back to the streetlights. Courtney, do you have a question or is your hand still up from before?
Nope, that was from before.
That was from before.
I don't know how to take it down, I guess.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to do it myself. I didn't know.
Okay. Okay, are there any more questions on the budget regarding streetlights? No, in that case, can we have a motion, please?
Yep, I move to accept the town manager's budget of $23,500 for the streetlights.
And a second?
Second.
Good, thank you. Okay, Shelley Butler,
Yes.
Lorna Cummings,
Yes.
Jill Delano,
Yes.
Beth Joan,
Yes.
Lisa Dresser,
Yes.
John French is not here, Nancy Harmon Jenkins,
Yes.
Jim Hurd,
Yes.
Richard Householder,
Yes.
Peter Lindquist,
Yes.
Drew Lyman is not here, Robin McIntosh, yes, Alicia Price,
Yes.
Wendy Rich,
Yes.
Sophie Romana,
Yes.
Andy Scrivenich,
Sorry.
Yes.
yes, okay, Sarah Scrivenich,
Yes.
Tyler Smith,
Yes.
Courtney Sukforth,
Yes.
Mary Winchell,
Yes.
and Pamela Gleason.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now on to Public Works. Is that you, Audra, are you starting or Dave St. Laurent starting?
Dave is all ready to go.
Is already. Okay, page 20 in your books, tab 5. David, you're on mute.
That? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm having some technical difficulties with my computer when it updated. My audio got messed up, so I'm using the headphones and the mic system and it kicks out on and off. So just wave your hands if you stop being able to hear me, but I'll try and make this all work for you, okay?
Thank you.
I will share my screen if I can. Let's go here. So So does everybody see that?
No.
No,
Okay. Um,
there you go.
Okay.
Yep,
So I'm gonna go here.
thank you.
Can you see the full screen now?
Not yet. I don't know that that fully clicked through, Dave.
Okay. How about that?
There you go.
Are you looking at the presenter's view or the full screen?
We're looking at the presenter view.
Okay. How about that?
There you go.
All right, so we got there. Okay, I'm Dave St. Laurent, and I'm the Public Works Director, and want to say good evening to the committee, and I hope you find this interesting. So a lot of, most people think about the Public Works Department as just basically plowing and doing snow and ice control, but we do a few other things. We take care of trash cans and municipal waste around town. We take care of the road maintenance, shouldering, ditching, paving, sweeping, tree removal, brush pickup. We do all the stormwater maintenance, structure repair, cleaning culverts, replacing culverts. We service all the town vehicles, and we maintain the fuel depot, maintenance and repair. We assist a lot of the other departments with different things that they don't have staff for. And we also currently are taking care of the townwide infrastructure project management. So I'm just gonna kind of go through these slides real quick, kind of like what Randy said before. You don't want me to read everything that's on here, but this is a slide that outlines the state roads versus the town roads. You guys still hear me? Okay. We have 148 roads and 12 roads that are state roads. This slide is showing you the priority system that the state uses for the state roads. And the priority system is how they rank, how those roads are repaired and how they move to the top of the list of maintenance and resurfacing. So the next slide here is, I'm going to go through real quickly the projects that you guys approved last year and the projects that I said I was going to try and complete. And then I'll go to the changes in the budget. I also want to say this budget is a flat budget. It's actually slightly under what it was last year. But I'll go through some of the projects that we completed. So we did a lot of road resurfacing this year. We did Lime Rock Street, Mechanic, Bayview, Penobscot Park, Chestnut, Howard Hill. We did the Snowball Access Road. We did the Mechanic Street and Washington Street parking lot, and we rebuilt Norwood Avenue. This is a slide of the rebuilding of the parking lots on Mechanic and Washington, where we put a new faux retaining wall. We put trees in, put plants in the planter boxes with an irrigation system. And I think that project came out pretty well. We rebuilt Norwood Avenue and all the infrastructure underneath, and we established an advisory lane marking system to help with traffic calming. This is something that's done in several other places in the state. It's done a lot in Europe. But as you can see here, I put a double yellow 30 feet long at the beginning and the end of the road to kind of bring the travelers into the right lane when they're getting ready to turn into the other roads that they're moving on and off of. But as you move into the middle of the road, it narrows it up to a 14-foot wide road with a dash line on each side, giving pedestrians and bicyclists a place to be on the side of that road. This is how people drive on this road before these markings are here, but the markings are just kind of establishing a safe place for people to be. It really works well. You know, I was looking at how people drive into this after we established the markings, and it really kind of makes the road feel a little narrower and people slow down quite a bit. And it's just a real natural way to do something without a lot of infrastructure. We also paved and rebuilt Park Street and put a new ADA compliant 5-foot sidewalk. We rebuilt the box culvert at the Snowball access road and repaved the Snowball access road. We regraded the whole area around the stormwater ponds to make them functional again. The 2 culverts that were in this stream crossing from Hosmer Pond were deteriorated and rotted. They didn't allow for fish passage. This new box culvert established a natural bottom stream system for fish to be able to migrate up and down from the pond itself. I think this came out really well. Along with all these repaving projects I just talked about, every time we go and resurface a road, there's a certain element of repair that has to happen in the stormwater infrastructure system. And you know, we actually replaced 677 linear feet of galvanized corrugated culvert that was deteriorated with new high-density polyethylene culvert pipe. We adjusted and repaired 16 stormwater catch basins. This is a picture of one right in front of French and Braun. I don't know if anybody remembers when you drove onto Mechanic Street right here, there was always this water that was kind of collecting right in front of there, and we put a new catch basin in right there, and before we repaved. We also repaired and adjusted 23 sewer manholes, which is quite a bit. One of the big projects this year was the Opera House, and originally we were just going to replace the gutters. The gutters were old galvanized gutters, and they were all rotten on the bottom and weren't holding water anymore. Once we pulled the gutters off, it was easy to see that we're into bigger problems. You can see that brick was just crumbling and falling apart. It was all completely rotted around the top, so we quickly readjusted the scope of work to not only replacing the gutters and some of the brick, but replacing all of that brickwork that was bad around the top, 4 courses high and 5 deep. It was over 7,000 bricks and 19 tons of brick that was replaced. We also put in new copper handmade galvanized gutters on 3 sides of the building, as well as sealed and repaired a lot of the top part of the flat part of the roof with an EPDM sealant to prevent the water from leaking into the building. The building was leaking really, really bad. And we've pretty much taken care of most of it, other than the part that's going to be incorporated into the Siemens project, which is the slate work that's going to be slated this year. We also repointed the entire Elm Street side of the building. So that work is just about wrapping up right now, and that's where we mechanically and hand tooled each one of those joints an inch deep and removed the old mortar and replaced all of that new mortar and recaulked all the windows, washed and sealed the building. That whole face of that building was just, the mortar was like dust, and it was letting, you can see on the left-hand side how porous and broken the brickwork was in mortar, and it was just allowing the water to move into the building and causing a lot of moisture issues on the inside of the building. We also, we're in charge of this fuel depot that's used by the county or the area, several towns in the area, the school buses, police station, fire department, along with several other towns. This roof was all pretty much rotten, and that roof was completely replaced along with the fascia. We, as Audra had mentioned to you earlier, we completely redid all of the streetlights in town and changed them over to LED. So we have 53 decorative lights that are in the downtown, and they run off of a smart control system called Roam. And the Roam portion wasn't working. That's all up and running now. And then we also replaced 283 old HID street lights with new smart control LED fixtures. Those are all on a smart control system. The decorative ones are Rome, and the street lights in the rest of the town are with a organization called Ubiqua. And I can see at any point in time those lights that are not working and working. I can see the history of those lights, and I have those lights all on a energy saving schedule. That basically none of these lights run at 100% anymore. They're all running at between 60 and 40%. And when during times of little use or low use, or times of off times, I'll say they're at 40%, and then they'll ramp back up in the morning to 60 and in the evening at 60. So it's an energy saving measure. There's also, as Robin mentioned, some of the lights that are customized to accommodate some of the issues with lighting for residents. This was a really big undertaking right here. This was the stormwater mapping project. So we this year we mapped out 23 miles of stormwater drainage and 718 catch basins using GPS at a sub-foot accuracy level. The data was configured on our online Access GIS viewer that's accessible to the town through the website, and the public can look at that at any point in time. A lot of people are kind of curious about the stormwater system and where it is and how it's connected and where does it go into the river or discharge into the ocean. It's an important thing to know, and contractors need to see it when they're doing work. We're also working with Knox County to further develop the system capabilities. The stormwater mapping project initially mapped out the locations of all those structures. Now we're in the process of actually collecting the data from each one of those structures to incorporate like the depth, the grate size, the flow direction, the material of the culvert or the pipe, and other information and observations. And I've been pretty lucky to have Allison helping me with this, because I don't think I could have probably done all this without her. The stormwater mapping project, when it's done in its entirety, is going to be pretty instrumental in helping with not only understanding where all the catch basins are, but it will give us a comprehensive understanding of the watershed. Then it'll be used for climate change planning, pollution monitoring, tracking, stormwater awareness and public outreach, best management practice, system maintenance, and record keeping, which are all an important aspect of stormwater management that people don't really understand. But there's a lot that goes into it, and this will help us manage that much better and plan better. Some of the other work that we did this year with other departments is we worked with the Parks and Rec department to install the swing set at Lake Beach. We did some work down at Harbor Park to kind of fix some safety hazards that were associated with the granite pieces up above due to storm surge and high water levels. They kind of erode the granite block behind, and they were creating tripping hazards for people and visitors. So we put some stone in there to kind of temporarily fix those problems. I think that the final resolve to all this is probably in the works right now. We buried a time capsule in the parking lot, and we're going to open up in 2040. And that's the projects that we completed this year. So I'll move on to the changes in the budget, which are pretty minimal. The FICA, Medicare, and health insurance, Jody could probably help me with, but signs, there was a marginal lowering due to surplus that we bought this year and probably not needing the signs that we needed last year. It's that simple. The uniform allowance, we just bumped that up slightly. Traffic control devices, we purchased quite a few with some of the COVID money, and it's not requiring us to buy new ones this year. Winter sand and salt, there was a slight change in that, just looking at the average. I kind of lowered that. We didn't use a lot of our sand this year. Radios, we only budgeted any repairs. The PD gave us some pretty good hand-me-downs that we're able to install in the equipment that took care of some of the issues we had. The biggest change you'll see is a fuel depot maintenance, and that's that slide I showed you where we repaired the roof and the bulk storage tanks, the two 10,000 gallon tanks. So those tanks have been in for quite some time now and haven't been inspected. There's some pitting and the supports underneath are degraded. So I put the extra money in this budget after getting a quote. Normally what you have is you pump these tanks out, you put a temporary
Dave, your voice has gone. David, we can't hear you.
I don't know if he can hear us either.
No, apparently. Wave.
I'll see if he can see a message.
I think with this shared screen, the chat has gone. Oh no, it's still down there. Dave, can you hear us? We've lost you. You can hear us. Yeah, we have no sound from you. Was that nearly the end of the presentation? Do you know, Audra? Were we at?
Yeah, Dave was just going over any
Yeah.
changes between FY21 and 22.
The biggest change seemed to be on the maintenance of the fuel depot. And he explained that very well. So I would move that we accept the recommendation of $1,174,038.
Second.
Seconded. Okay. Any questions or discussion that maybe Audra can answer while Dave isn't here with us? Oh, okay. Thank you. Let's go through that then. Shelley Butler. Shelley.
Yes,
There
sorry.
you are. There you are. Lorna Cummings.
Yes.
Jill Delano.
Yes.
Beth Doan.
Yes.
Lisa Dresser.
Yes.
John French is not here. Nancy Harmon Jenkins.
Yes.
Jim Hurd.
Yes.
Richard Householder.
Yes.
Peter Lindquist.
Yes.
Peter Lyman is not here. Robin McIntosh, yes. Licia Price.
Yes.
Wendy Rich.
Yes.
Sophie Romano.
Yes.
Andy Scrivenich.
Yes.
Sarah Scrivenich.
Yes.
Tyler Smith.
Yes.
Courtney Sukforth.
Yes.
Mary Winchell.
Yes.
And Pamela Gleason. Pamela, are you?
Yes.
You're here. Okay.
Yes.
Everybody keeps moving around. I can't look up and find people. Okay, thank you. So that's Public Works. Streets and Sidewalks, I assume, is also Dave. Audra, would you like to proceed?
Can you hear me at all?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I'm back again.
You're back. He's
All
back.
right, so
Page 22. Are you still there, Dave?
I am.
Okay, all right. Oh, there you are. I couldn't see you. We just passed your budget, by the way, if you weren't there.
Okay, so am I good, or are we going over another part of the budget?
Yes, we're looking at streets and sidewalks now,
Oh,
page
okay.
22. Hang on one sec. Peter, you have a question?
I was just going to make a motion, but no, I'll wait till Dave finishes.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
so I mean, there isn't a lot of big changes, streets and sidewalks. In my presentation, I explained I can go over the paving that's proposed. So proposed.
Oh, we just lost you again. Audra,
Still hear
can
me?
oh, you're back. Let's give it one more try and then. Do you want to try and explain it?
Oh, I think.
Audra, how about we move on? Audra, is that something that you can quickly go through and?
I can't give you any sort of individual details on what the paving schedule is for this year, but I can explain generally what this budget does. It's all pretty obvious from the titles. It's just the funds that we use to do general street maintenance, paving, additional repair money, or this is sort of like the year-to-year maintenance of things like the culverts and basins, paying for trash disposal, and if we're gonna, doing any sort of maintenance work on storm sewers. One thing, the sidewalk money that's been sort of increased over the years, and that's given the Public Works Department the ability to do more significant sidewalk repairs. And I think those are sort of the notable things about the budget. Oh, and Dave is sharing with us the planning.
Yep.
Audra, this doesn't include any of the sidewalk expansion of 105, is that correct? It does not.
Correct. So that's all, stuff like that that's partially grant funded. We've set that aside in reserve accounts, or we've in prior years put it into the capital improvement program.
At all?
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on this budget? If not, we can entertain a motion. Peter, I think you were ready to make one.
I move we accept the $403,000 for streets, highways, bridges, and sidewalks.
Okay, is there a second on that? Second, okay, and we'll note that is down 5% from last year's budget.
0.5%.
Excuse me?
0.5%.
Right.
Not
Oh, did I say 5? Sorry. Okay.
Really?
That would have been nice, wouldn't it? Okay, Shelley Butler,
Yes.
Lorna Cummings,
Yes.
Jill Delano,
Yes.
Beth Doan,
Yes.
Lisa Dresser,
Yes.
John French is not here, Nancy Harmon Jenkins,
Yes.
Jim Hurd. Jim, are you still here? I see you. Raise your hand if you're a yes.
Yes, thank you.
There we go. Richard Householder?
Yes.
Yes. Peter Lindquist?
Yes.
Robin McIntosh, yes. Lisa Price?
Yes.
Wendy Rich?
Yes.
Sophie Romano?
Yep.
Andy Scrivenich?
Yes.
Sarah Scrivenich?
Yes.
Tyler Smith?
Yes.
Courtney Sukforth?
Yes.
Mary Winchell?
Yes.
And Pamela Gleason?
Yes.
Yes, okay, good, thank you. That's streets and sidewalks. Next up is parking lots and tree program on page 23.
All right, so for the parking lots, the 68,000 number is the lease that we pay for the Knox Mill and Knowlton Street parking lots. That's a fairly recent arrangement. It was approved at town meeting a few years ago. And the maintenance is for sort of all general maintenance of municipally owned parking lots. And the cost of this is offset with proceeds from the downtown TIF. So we use TIF funds to pay for that lease agreement as well as the maintenance cost on the parking lots.
And was that a lease purchase, Audra? I can't.
Yes, it's a lease purchase agreement.
Just to clarify.
15 years.
In over 15 years?
Yep. And I believe we are, at this point, we would be probably on year 12.
Oh, wow. Any other questions? Everybody know what parking lot we're talking about? The one behind the mill building between Mechanic and
I have
Washington?
a question. Who are we paying this money to?
So it's owned by Knox Mill Holdings LLC, also known as Matt Oren.
Oh, okay, all right.
So,
Got it.
But we will own that parking lot by the time we're through. Lorna, you have a question?
I was just looking in general at the parking, I didn't see where in the budget you had said in your letter about Audra, about changing the parking, like parking management and looking at that and studying. And I didn't know how that was getting paid for, or where that was coming from.
So I didn't formally put that anywhere in the budget because with all the, contingency money we have, as well as unspent funds for things like professional services, we have enough money in our existing budget that we didn't incorporate it in the FY22 budget. And I'm also hoping that we're going to be starting that study next month. So hopefully it'll start in FY21 and wrap up early FY22.
Thanks.
Any other questions on the parking budget line? Yes, Jill?
This is, I'm sure, small potatoes, but why are we paying winter maintenance of leased parking spaces at the church on Central Street? I walk by there all the time and I never see anybody parked there.
Yeah, that's one of those sort of historic agreements where I think, there was a time when there probably wasn't as much available parking in the downtown. Like if you ask me, we have a lot of available parking between all the, the businesses that have lots that don't sort of ticket people for being in them, the municipally owned lots. So all I can do is sort of speculate as to how that happened over time. But I would agree with you that it's not very well used at all. And I think it's just something that sort of we've continued to plow and do a little bit of sanding over time, even though, I would agree with you that there's very limited public use of that lot.
Okay,
So
any
the
other
question-
questions? Yep.
But the question Jill is asking is why do we keep on paying this, right? That's basically the question you're asking. So is there a way to stop this tradition, or?
Yeah, I mean, we could certainly say to them that, we don't see the benefit anymore and not do it.
How much money is involved in that?
It's really more of a time thing.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm sure the select board and Audra will take that under advisement for future years. Any other questions on this budget line item? And if
I
not,
have-
a motion.
I had one question, sorry.
Courtney?
The parking lots on the, across from the Knox Mill, there's like the little mini one, and then there's a bigger one, and then there's one that's kind of gated. That's sometimes, is the gated one, is that also part of the lease, or is that separate? That's still Knox Mill, and that's all, it's not just for downtown. I mean, it's public parking. Anybody can park there. Is that correct?
Are you talking on the one across the street on Mechanic Street that has the?
Yes. Yeah, I guess, well, there's one that's kind of across from in between, where Rockport Blueprint and, not Frugal Susie, Serendipity is, there's that like gated one, and then there's the one up from that, and then the mini one that's more up by, the apartments right before you get to Free Street. So I just didn't know if it included all of those lots eventually will be all public, or if that first lot that has the gate in it, is that still connected to Knox Mill?
So it's connected to Knox Mill. It's or actually, I think actually the one with the gate is Camden Parking Company. So that's not Knox Mill, but the one up from it is owned by Knox Mill, and that's all private parking.
So I think, Courtney, the parking lot that we've been talking about is the one that's kind of behind the mill between Washington Street and Knowlton Street.
Correct. Yep. You can.
Oh, I
yeah.
see. Okay, so not the ones across. I see what you're saying. Okay, just kidding then.
Okay, thank you. Lisa, I saw you waving. Did you have a question?
No, I was just in agreement with everything Courtney was saying.
Oh, okay, all right, good. Okay, so
Audra, I had a quick question.
go ahead, Tyler.
Are we on the tree program as well, or just parking lots?
You could bundle in the tree program. I could, yeah. Does
Sure.
anyone have any questions about that? It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, pretty straightforward. I just, I see that we haven't spent very much money on it this year, and that's a program that I always, to me, I think there's a lot of value in that. So I'd always love to get all that money spent. And I know that Dave raised his finger up, so he might have a comment on what he's going to do with all that extra money and where all the trees are going to get planted.
Me? Can you hear me at all?
Vaguely, try.
Okay, so I mean, I'm meeting with, we're going to have a meeting about talking. One of the things that we want to incorporate into, and we're just looking at it right now, but this is one of the ideas, is when the trees are removed, we really need to make a bigger effort in possibly like grinding the stump out and putting another tree.
Oh, we just lost you, Dave.
Just when he's saying something interesting.
Yeah.
We
lost you again.
We should use the unspent money to buy him a new mic.
Yeah, there we go. That would be computers.
Yes.
So, Audra, do you have more to say on that? Do you know what the answer was to that question? Otherwise, we can have a motion for both of those line items if somebody would like.
Unfortunately, I didn't. I guess most of you probably know that the shade tree planting money, the garden club also contributes to that. But in terms of a plan for how we're going to, any way to get the word out, so we're spending more this year, anything else we're going to do. They're going to try and grind out stumps every time a tree is removed so they can replant each time.
Good idea.
Audra, I have a question. The shade tree planting program, is that limited to a certain area of town, or is that anybody within Camden's borders?
Nope, anyone can request a shade tree.
And the way that works is the town pays a third, the garden club pays a third, and the property owner pays a third. So we've done it twice for $75, gotten some very nice maples out in front of our house.
Yeah, we actually saw that somewhere online today about the 75, and we just didn't know if it was only within the in-town, like historic district, or if it was anywhere in town.
And you need to let Janice know early. Because they go quickly.
Can I have that old stump that they cut back 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago? Can I have that ground out now by the town? If I pay a third of it?
Was it a shade tree before?
It was, yeah. It was a big old maple that was falling apart, and they took it out. And now I've got a stump with maple shoots coming up from it.
Let Janice know.
I will. I'll call her tomorrow.
Thank you. Okay, so can we have a motion then on those two items? So
Tyler needs to make a motion.
You're making a motion? Or Tyler needs to make a motion?
Tyler needs to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the parking lots budget of $73,000 and also the tree program at $34,000.
Second?
Second it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Shelley Butler.
Yes.
Lorna Cummings.
Yes.
Jill Delano.
Yes.
Beth Doan.
Yes.
Lisa Dresser.
Yes, ma'am.
John French is not here. Nancy Harmon Jenkins.
Yes.
Jim Hurd. Jim, lost you again. Yes. You're on mute. Yes, he's nodding his head. Yes. Richard Householder.
Yes.
Peter Lindquist.
Yes.
Drew is not here. Robin, yes. Lisa Price.
Yes.
Wendy Rich.
Yes.
Sophie Romano.
Yes.
Andy Scrivenich.
Yes.
Sarah Scrivenich.
Yes.
Tyler Smith.
Yes.
Courtney Sukforth.
Yes.
Mary Winchell.
Yes.
And Pamela Gleason.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Parking lot and trees, we have done that. So all we have left, Audra, is debt capital. Were you going to try and save that, did you say? Or?
Yeah, I'll save that so that it comes towards the end when we've talked about all those potential projects.
Okay. So at this point then we are finished unless there's anything specific. If finishing up at 8 o'clock, thanks to our earlier time start. You can see there's a lot to go over. I guess we should have a motion to adjourn unless somebody else has any specific questions.
I have one quick question, and I'm sure it's already been addressed and discussed. I just need a sort of a refresher. So when there's money left over, like say from fiscal year 2019, not 1920, sorry, 2020, and we budgeted for 20,000, but only 15,000 was used. What, I'm not sure if they get how it works in terms of like, if all of this money gets to them at the beginning of the year and then they use it, allocated for each line item. But I didn't know if they didn't use a certain amount, does that go into like a surplus for that same, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm sorry. Brain, it's not working right now, but like for the same
budget. You mean
yeah.
if you're underspent in the year before, do you get that little extra at the beginning of the year?
Right. Does it carry over? Is that like a surplus? So if one budget item goes over, can they take it from another one that's not using so much? I just didn't know what happened with that extra money.
Yep, that's a great question. So there's 3 different things that could happen. So if there's a specific line that's underspent, but there are other lines within that same budget area that are overspent, sometimes that money could sort of be absorbed into the overall so that, we're not going over in that particular area. So that's one thing that could happen. Or it could be that money gets carried forward to the next financial year. And that's a good example of that. In the past, we carried forward a lot of paving money. So, if we didn't spend all of our paving budget in any one given year, we'd carry it forward to the next. Or it could be that money just goes into the unassigned fund balance or the surplus. So those are the 3 different things that could happen if we have a line that's underspent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and thank you to our department heads tonight, technical difficulties and all, for that interesting evening. And I guess if we have a motion to adjourn, second, and move it, we'll wait until I see a thumbs up going on.
I make a motion to
okay, I'm not going to do a roll call. We'll go through it. We'll see you next Thursday. We have two more meetings. And just somebody asked me during the week what has happened in the past. There have been times when we've gone into the following month when there have been a lot to talk about. So shortening meetings tends to mean more meetings. So thank you for sticking with us tonight, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.